Yael's made, but since she is such an expert on documentaries in terms of being a professor of film and teaching about it now, and since she's made several Holocaust-related films, we also thought it would be a wonderful chance for us to have Yael Katzir guide our discussion today and maybe open up with some comments on the film. It's probably of the 4 films, well, I don't know, everyone may have their different perspective, but certainly probably the heaviest film and dealing with particularly disturbing, upsetting material. So maybe if you can kind of walk us through some of your perspectives on the film, Professor Katzir, and then we'll open it again to questions and others' perspectives, okay, so that we can discuss that film together. All right.
Well, if we are moving to Love It Was Not by Maya Tzorfati, I want to say that for me, it was not an easy film to watch, especially not the final part with the trial of the guy. But what I want to say is that dealing with the Holocaust altogether is not very simple. It's a very complex and a very broad topic, and the stories are never ending. They are not ending. There are still so many stories that have not been told and that they should be told. The TV channels of today and many of the producers, they tell me, oh, the Holocaust, what are you dealing with? It's not in anymore. It's not in anymore. I don't think so. I think that we as Israelis especially, we have to remember that when I grew up, the survivors were part of the scenery where I grew up, all of them, and they didn't talk. The survivors didn't talk, and only after maybe 40 years, they started to talk and to say something about what they happened, because you know that also many of the psychologists today believe that if you went through a traumatic experience, the best way is to not to deal with it, but to go forward. And if you don't go forward, you are stuck in the trauma. But in this respect, I think after 40 years, the defense walls that the survivors created around themselves started to creak, and then they started to talk and to tell even their own children. You know, I know very little. My father was not a Holocaust survivor. He just escaped from Hitler in Germany. And I don't know much about it because he didn't talk. He simply didn't talk about it. We know that he came to the hospital, and then he's talking about his mother, who was so clever, who took him to the British embassy, and she said she took a clipboard and she called him in, Dr. Abau, and she made him go into the office, although he was at the end of the line, and this is how he got out of Germany. But more than this, I don't know much. And this is very, very sad. We have to remember that Claude Lanzmann had decided to search into it. He made a series in which he called Shoah, 9 chapters. And you should have seen the streets in Israel during the screening of this series. You wouldn't see a dog crossing the street. It was such a quiet, everybody was watching it. And Claude Lanzmann did it for 10 years, and at the end he ended up in the hospital because he was a little bit out of his mind. So you have to understand that these things are not easy and not simple. And when we come to this film, love it was not. For me, at the beginning, I really didn't think that it should be in the festival, Yael, you know? And when I saw it again, I understood why you did put it in the festival, because it is a very irregular topic, and it is a situation where a Nazi officer is helping a Jew or relating to a Jew as a human being and not as the scum of the earth. But the same Nazi officer is not, for him, all the other Jews, they are just the scum of the earth. So he is ready to send kids into the gas chambers. He is ready to send other people into the gas chambers, males into the gas chambers. He fell in love with this specific woman. So this is, in a way, a little bit very unusual. And yet, when he was going to trial in 1972 in Vienna, she is ready to go. She is married already. Maybe she's having also grandchildren at that point. She is going to say the truth, what happened. He saved her sister, not the children of her sister, but her sister. And he comes out not guilty. So for me, this was, I have to say that this documentary in some way was a little bit disappointing. But what I do have to say is that I did feel the uniqueness of the film, and also the fact that we didn't have any narrator, but we have only testimonies. We have a lot of testimonies of other women who were with her, who were her friends, who saw that this guy had really fallen in love with her. And she says, no, it was not. So was it love or wasn't it love? Why did she go to Vienna? I don't know. I'm not sure. She was too young to make such a statement, such a big statement, but the Holocaust is a very complex thing. And I want to say that in the Holocaust, we have so many possibilities and so many stories and so many survivals. I did a short film for a family where a boy who was 11 years old was saved. And you know by whom he was saved? He was saved by the Russian army. And why was he saved by the Russian army? Because this was a unit that was dealing with German prisoners of war, and this boy, he knew Yiddish, so he could explain to the Russians what the Germans said. And you keep saying to yourself, well, this is completely abnormal, but this is what it was. This is how he was saved. And I asked him, do you remember the name of your sister and brother? And he said, no, I don't remember. So he was saved because his father managed to throw him from the place. When the Germans came, he threw him almost half naked into a barn of the Ukraine guy where they were living. And he waited until all the shooting was finished, and then he came out, and the Ukraine guy, when he saw him, he thought that this is a ghost. So he just ran out into the snow, barefoot, and later the Russian soldiers saved him. It's really a little bit abnormal, but this is a story that happened. And he cannot remember in no way the names of his brothers and sisters. And I asked him, so you haven't been to Poland since then? He said, yeah, I have been. So why didn't you check in all the writing, in the documents? He didn't want to. He didn't feel that he has to do it, and he didn't do it. Simply, he didn't do it. So this is another thing that we can say, that the stories about the Holocaust and survival in the Holocaust cannot be finished. And actually, the goal of the film Love It Was Not, for me, when I started to watch it, I told myself, well, it's another survival story. The woman had to survive, so she had to decide whether she is collaborating with him or not collaborating with him. So she, in order to survive, she collaborated. She was not the only one. But her story didn't finish with the war, because she carried on her heart the fact that the children of her daughter were assassinated. All the other parts of her family were killed. And not only this, later on, when she was walking in Tel Aviv or on the beach or wherever, people will point at her and say, well, she is someone who collaborated with the Nazis. So although she didn't have a feeling, or at least this is what she claims, and we don't know if she had a feeling or not, she would be always pointed out like with a Cain sign. She is one who is not kosher, not right. And then comes the trial. And in the trial, you know, until the Eichmann trial in Israel, people did not speak. Indeed, the survivors did not speak. Only after the Eichmann trial, things started to come out, and also maybe with Lanzmann's film, when he succeeded to really to pull out of the survivors their own stories. So we have also to think that when we deal with the Holocaust, we are talking about a situation where this is the imagining the unimaginable, because we don't have enough footage from this period. We have footage from the end of the period. We have footage of the British coming or the Americans coming into the camps, but we don't know about the daily life. And whatever the Germans did, they did it with a very, with mean intention to show the bad parts of the Jews. So here we have something else which is very, very, can we deal with it? Can't we deal with it? But we have to deal with it, because this is the only way. And today, many of the survivors are dying because they are very old already. And we have a new thing that is called in Israel, Zikaron Basalon, memory in the living room. And every year, people come, and also the second generation come, because the second generation did not always know or listen or dare to ask their parents how they survived. And you will ask me, so why didn't they ask the parents? Why didn't I ask my father, who did not go through the Holocaust? He just escaped. He escaped from a hospital to Israel. And here he was a very well-received doctor. He did a lot of stuff, whatever. Why didn't I ask him? I didn't ask him because I thought that it will bring him bitterness. And I didn't want him to have any kind of bitterness from this period. So when we are talking about people who survived the Holocaust and all their families were assassinated, I mean, what can we say? It's not only bitterness, it's a lot of pain, it's a lot of grief, it's a lot of whatever. You don't live with it. It's a very traumatic experience. And you know that many people after the Holocaust just got married in order to create families without even, today people try and test and live together and see whether they have a collaboration, good collaboration with each other. At that time, they didn't care. They didn't care so much. They just wanted another family. This is what they wanted. They wanted a family because they lost all of theirs. And this is not so easy.
Also, just while you're thinking about whether the next point you may want to make, I just want to again open it up to questions. So if you feel like you want to ask a question, please write it in the chat or raise your hand electronically. Certainly this was a very disturbing movie, right? So I even felt uncomfortable with them trying to use the word love, right? Because basically she could have been killed if she hadn't had a relationship with this officer. So it's certainly, you think of like, what is it called? Kidnapping syndrome, hostage syndrome, that, basically she was so dependent on him for survival that there may have been confusion for genuine affection. I don't know, but certainly it raises a lot of questions when he was murdering others and could have murdered her any second. And I think that you were using the word collaboration in terms of more cooperation in a relationship rather than her collaborating to have any other Jews suffer, because she didn't engage in that kind of collaboration. But so it just seemed the whole, that was part of the disturbing element of the film, is she had to have a so-called relationship with him in order to survive, but she of course didn't have any choice, and he was framing it as kind of a genuine real relationship, or maybe
I agree with you.
When of course that would be very problematic given that if she didn't acquiesce, she would have been killed. But I don't know if you want to speak to that, and please, if others have questions, please write them in the chat or put your hand up electronically. Yeah. Sorry, Yael, I didn't know if there was another point you wanted to make, or if you wanted to kind of speak to that, because you're speaking about how people survived the camps, and it didn't seem like she had any choice. And if you have any choice, if you don't have any choice, then it would be hard put to call it any kind of genuine, relationship of any kind.
Yeah, and I think also that the director wanted to say that although he was a Nazi and he had inhuman relation towards the rest of the world, he did show human feelings for one single Jew. And he himself, he was in danger because it was forbidden to have relations with a Jew. So we have to remember this also. So this is a point that goes for him, not against him, but on the whole, I think that he was a Nazi. This is all I can say. And love is something that is reciprocal. It has to come from both sides, not from one side only. And but of course, this is not it's not an ordinary Holocaust movie. This is for sure, and I think that you did good in putting it here, because it brings to the surface all the questions of what price is someone ready to pay in order to survive. And today, with the Ukraine, I don't know what they will be ready to pay when the moment comes, and it is not so simple. And Frankel, he says that freedom is the most important thing on earth. but maybe it is not, and not for everyone. And here we do see that the survival was for her very, very important, and she survived.
Also, I think the movie is effective in bringing up the question in terms of the dilemma she had in going to Vienna, where he was put on trial, and what to say, because it seems like she was very used in that manner too. I don't think her intent was to let him off the hook and his responsibility for all the murders during the Holocaust. She just wanted to say, okay, he did save me in that instance, but that she was used by the court in Vienna in a way, perhaps in a manner that she wasn't expecting or not necessarily aware of, that by telling her individual truth, that somehow it would be manipulated or used in terms of describing his responsibility for other things. And so that's why she faced this opposition in Israel as well. But I don't know if you want to speak to that, or to the kind of, it seemed like a kind of kangaroo court that they had in Vienna for him to begin with.
But I think that you are too good here. I think that the jury in Vienna was very anti-Semitic, and they didn't care that he killed Jews. This is a very simple fact and unfortunate fact, but she said, I don't think that anyone would have thought that she did not say the truth, but the fact that he loved her and that she was a single person in a whole crowd of people that he assassinated, well, they could have had another verdict, and they didn't have. So what can we say? There are other people who also don't like Jews, and the Viennese, I'm not sure that they like Jews. I didn't realize that Francis Walsh, the person that he was, why was he, the film doesn't tell us, why was he judged in Vienna and not in Berlin or in Frankfurt, in Germany? This I didn't understand. Was he Austrian? Do you know, Yael? No.
I don't remember, and I do remember in the film that they were saying how exceptional it was that he was even put on trial, that a small fraction of people put on trial, and then of those that were, no one, in the context for him, no one was actually found often guilty and so forth. So how unusual it was that he was even put on trial, and then it seemed like it was again a kind of kangaroo court. So it does seem like she, people were horrified with her kind of participation, having somehow contributed, right, to him getting off. Yeah.
Maybe. I think that Maya Tzorfati is a very courageous person, and she took a very, very important issue, because I don't know if there were other Nazi officers. I believe that there were other Nazi officers who didn't kill everyone, but here she found something that is really very good for a film, and she did it very well. I want to say that in her film, what helped her a lot, she couldn't recreate the daily life of the camp, and then she did this photo montage in the film, which helped the film quite a bit, and also I think that the music, the soundtrack that she put to the film helped her quite a bit. Yet the Auschwitz scene is, in my opinion, a little bit dull, because she could have made it a little bit stronger. And But the photo montage is a wonderful idea, and she used it in a very clever way, very, very clever way. And this is why she got the award for the film. I think so, for the topic and for the way in which she did it. I don't have so much more to say about the film. This is what I have to say. I'm sorry, I don't know what the time, how much more time
No,
we
no,
have.
no, it does bring
No,
up a
we
lot
have
of,
15 minutes, it's okay.
it does bring up a lot of provocative questions. I certainly encourage anyone who has seen the film, if you'd like to ask any questions or pose it to us as a group to discuss. So we encourage you to do that. I don't know, in terms of coming from your perspective as a documentary maker, whether there was anything that surprised you or that you would have, I know you wouldn't have picked this particular topic, since you picked more inspirational stories, as you said, from the beginning, from the get-go, that would end with some kind of hope, for us. And this documentary certainly did not end in that manner. But how would you have kind of treated this, or how would, what perspective would you have taken if you were making such a film?
If I was making such a film, I'm not sure that I would have included the trial in the film, because it really depresses anyone who sees it, and you understand that it's not only the Francis Walsh, but also others who don't love Jews. And I was raised in Israel as a new state with a lot of hope, with a lot of belief that something good will happen. And today we were in a lockdown because Rav Kanievsky died. 500,000 males went to his funeral, and they blocked us all in the houses, and the schools didn't work, and nothing worked today. What is it? Is this a Jewish, the Jewish state that we dreamt about? No, but this is what we have. What can we do? I don't have what to say. I don't think that I would have chosen this topic, but I think that the topic is very, very important, because the topic raises the question, what is the price for survival? She did not walk on others. She did not cause the death of others. It is just she who saved her own skin. And in this respect, we have to respect her also, because there were others who also were ready to step on the bodies of others. And here, this is, in my opinion, a very, very important topic. For me, it would not have been suitable to deal with it, because then I dream about it, I dream about the Nazis and all this, I don't like it. And I dream a lot about the Ukraine now, which is very bad for me, I have to tell you. And I think that the heresy, how do you say, the destruction of complete country, why? Why does Putin has to distract so much and to kill so many people? Why? Why does he have to do it? I don't know. I don't know. I think that I don't want to say what I think.
No, it's obviously extremely disturbing, right? And that he's violating any kind of international humanitarian law in terms of the targets and so forth. But going back to the film, I see a question from Vered Weiss. I don't know if you're able to ask it directly. Otherwise, I can read it. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Hi, I can. Thank you very much. I just wondered if we might, I understand we have a few more minutes, if we might sort of have a brief comparative discussion of the three very different, very unique perspective on women that we saw. Just if a brief summary, we have Muna, who is this very strong and creative woman, and then we have Sulika, who's and my point is, if we could do a comparative reading, I think these are three inspirational women who are very strong in each in their own unique way, and really all three are trying to survive in very oppressive, I mean, obviously the camp is the most.
Well, I want to answer you.
Yes,
your
thank
question. Yeah. I think that one should not make a comparison between these kind of women. And this is why these films were chosen for the festival. Each one has to think what you can take from the film. What is the message of the film, and what part of the message is applying or appealing to you? Because they are not the same. They are completely the same, and they don't come from the same period. And even though Surika and Helena were in the same time, lived more or less in the same time, they had faced so different circumstances and situations that I really don't think you have to compare them. Why do you want to compare them? Why do you want to compare them? You say, I saw today 3 different movies, and each one impressed me in a different way. And from each one, I can take to myself, or I can take to the people who are close to me, or explain to the people who are close to me something else. I really don't think that you should try to compare between them. You can compare 2 things that are on the same ground, on the same level, and then you have a basis for the comparison. But if you don't have a basis for comparison, how would you compare?
Go ahead.
So I think the base for my comparison is twofold. First, these are 3 films made by women filmmakers, and these are 3 films that have women as the focus. So I think it's interesting precisely because on the one hand, the 3 films are made by women and focus on women, but they portray such different, and the 3 women are each strong in their own way, but they're so distinctly different because what you said, because of the time and place and the kind of adversity they have to encounter. So I think that's the comparison that I was talking about, precisely highlighting, the places where they're all women, but they face very, very different circumstances, and therefore I think it is interesting to see how these strong women engage with their very, very different circumstances.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, here you see, I think, disciplinary differences too, like where an anthropologist might be like, okay, let's look at the uniqueness and stress the uniqueness of this. And then me as a political scientist, we're encouraged to think comparatively. So I think that they're drastically different circumstances, but I think Vered is right that they're all 3 strong women in different respects who are reacting to their challenges. And just in terms of the 2 movies that we've been discussing in the past hour and a half or so, I mean, I think also with Beloved she was not only trying to survive herself, which many people I think would do in her circumstance, and then the strength that would be needed to go through what she's going and having her relatives be simultaneously murdered. But it seems to me like she was also doing everything she can to help others survive through saving the extra food that she was privileged to get and sharing it with others. And so it wasn't, I didn't see it as only or primarily kind of a self-interest in her own particular survival, but even under those circumstances where many people just wouldn't have the strength to survive, that she was still thinking of others and trying to do everything she could to help others survive as well. And so in that sense, yes, in one sense, they're incomparable, but in another sense, both of these women were risking their lives, right? In the two movies we just discussed, they were risking their lives to help others, right? I think Sarika was saying, for the men, they could have been imprisoned as prisoners of war if they had been caught. And for the women, they would have been killed because they would have been accused of being spies. And the same here. There are various situations where by helping others or trying to save others, she was also risking her own life. So I think you're both right? That in some senses, they're incomparable. They're completely different situations and contexts. But in other senses, it brings a kind of more human question, right? That we all think through, and that it was kind of,
I want to say, Yael, also, I want to say one more thing. I think that the comparison should be talking about the directors who choose unique women. This is it, and not the women themselves. Because it is 3 movies made by 3 women, and they choose other women to speak through them and to give a message to the world. Okay.
No, it was because I assume, and I don't know if you have statistics, either of you, but I assume 95% of the writers and directors are men, and certainly we see that in so many different respects. And so that was certainly one of the reasons that we chose to focus today on 3 women creators and directors and protagonists and so forth, to hear more about their particular situations. Because even in Holocaust films, you have a lot less attention, I think, paid to this, this kind of story. Yeah,
it is true. Now I see that there is Keith Smith. He came on. Ariana, can you talk to him?
Oh, I think he just joined the conversation, but if anyone on has a question or a comment, please raise your hand, put in the chat, or unmute yourself. We just have a couple more minutes.
We have 3 more minutes.
I'd let you make any kind of closing remarks that you like, and it's wonderful to have us back, to have you back. And then I encourage you, today it all had to be virtual for a variety of different reasons, but I encourage those of you here to come join us Tuesday evening. We're actually going to be in person and have a Woody's Lebanese Mediterranean meal outside because of still the continuing COVID conditions at 6 o'clock. And then in Wells, I think Ariana put this in the chat as well. So at 7 o'clock in Wells Hall B 117, we'll be showing the movie Alsi about a Black basketball player, American basketball player who moves to Israel and plays for Israel, and his experiences and struggles and so forth. And we'll have the director, Danny Menken, lead a live discussion of the film at 8:30. And I think, like Yael, Danny Menken makes kind of inspirational stories about characters as well, and tries to, everyone has their different goals, but to also uplift the viewers through the challenges in a kind of inspirational way. And maybe there's a commonality between the 2 directors there. So I wanted to thank everybody and see if you had any kind of closing comments, Yael. I think you're muted, Yael. You're muted.
I think that the Holocaust is going to be important in the next following 10 years, and that we should deal with it as much as we can, but I don't know what will happen with the Ukraine. I have to say the truth, because for me, the pictures look almost like the Holocaust. The destruction is terrible, but it's not intentional as the Nazi did with the gas chambers, of course. And we have to be careful not to repeat what happened already in the past. This is my only message that I can say. And I hope that the state of Israel will not be destroyed like the Ukraine. And there is a fear here. I have to tell the truth. If you listen to some people here, and if you listen to people who know what they are talking about, we are still in danger, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, it's very disturbing to see what's happening in the Ukraine and elsewhere, and certainly, war is always on the horizon as well. And
Unfortunately.
yeah, so there's so much more to talk about in the future. Your students are lucky to have you, and to
But
continue
we
to be able
have to vote for women.
Yeah.
Vote for women.
That too. So thank you for making so many films that focus on women and focus in an inspirational way on women as well. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone. I hope that many of you are in Michigan. There's a spring seems to be finally in the air and here, so that you can enjoy being outside as well. And please join us again on Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock for a complimentary dinner outside, followed by an in-person movie and discussion. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon and evening for
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Yael, and thank you.